Okay, He-Skeletor, Blue He-Man, let's go over it. Okay, this was sent out fast. Compared to the other ones that I've ordered, this probably was sent out the fastest of any of them. I don't know why. I don't know if it's exactly like I said, that they had the numbers this time guaranteed, because personally, and I've been in logistics for years and years, almost as long as I can remember. I've done production, warehouse stuff, factory stuff in general, and I've done warehouse logistics. Man, I probably have 20 years in all honesty. And normally with your numbers, the way that I see it, especially on a pre-order, you know exactly how much is in your inventory before you ever start taking orders. You take orders and you close the orders at a certain point, and then it only takes about a day or so to really process the orders at that point. I don't know exactly what's been going on with Mattel's shipping. I really don't get it, because this was about what I actually expect on the normal. I got my hit almost immediately. I put in, and like the next day they sent me a thing and said, hey, that's being shipped. And I was like, what? Like, that is crazy fast, because that's the way that I normally would assume that it would work. But whatever's going on, I don't know if they fixed it. I don't know if they figured out the whole situation or not. Either way, if this is how fast these things are going to start showing up, that's pretty exciting, because they have about one Motu item every month on Mattel Creations, and then you order them and then you wait like 3-4 months. That's been the normal. I'll just say it. That's been the normal, and I don't necessarily understand that. But all of that aside, he's here, and he's Blue He-Man. There are some definite things to talk about here with this figure. And one of the main things to talk about is that he is 100% without a doubt just a repaint. Okay, so the box that he came in is pretty solid. That's pretty cool, but once again, and I mentioned this in the other video, this could have just been He-Man. There's nobody that could have argued with it. There's no indication that this is anything other than He-Man. That's what it is. That's what it looks like. It's cool artwork. It's a cool overbox. It's a cool shipping box. But it is proving the point that he is 100% without a doubt just a repaint. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing if the repaint is done well. We've seen plenty of figures that benefit from being just a repaint. In fact, and I don't have too many of them, but Anti-Eternia He-Man, just a repaint. Let me step over here. Hopefully I don't mess up our lighting or setup too much. But He-Man, of course, because, I mean, the star of the line, right? These two characters, this one being the main attraction, this one being a repaint, and this one being a repaint, I mean, it's not that it's a bad thing. Sometimes repaints do work. But that is what it is. His box is fantastic, though. That is fantastic. It is really cool. We're going to move it in here a little bit, kind of show it off. This is fantastic. This is really cool. This Panther, Battle Panther, that's really cool. I don't know what this thing is. We never really got to see it in the comic book. I mean, we've seen them building all the wraiths and everything, from the spirits that he captured and the sword that then he let out, and they build this. If you haven't seen the comic book, it's pretty cool. It's Masters of the Multiverse. And then, of course, this is kind of right. It's kind of right. He-Skeletor, or He-Keldor, as some people have come to call him, is the Keldor that's traveled with during that multiverse event finally holds up the sword at the end after believing himself to be destined to become a Skeletor like everybody else in the multiverse, until he is told Skeletor in every multiverse is enemies with He-Man, and if you are the enemy of Skeletor or the enemy of an evil He-Man, and basically they work this weird roundabout where he puts the sword up and says, you know, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power, and then he gets to become He-Man or He-Skeletor. I will say it feels a little forced at the end, but it was a pretty good comic nonetheless. Now, let's open him because I want to talk a little bit about him. Okay, so let's talk about something real quick. One thing, he came with a new mini-comic, which is fantastic because it looks like a crazy one. I'm kind of looking forward to reading it rather. Little tear happened on the bottom here though, and that was because of the glue. It's not a huge one. In fact, it's barely noticeable in all honesty, but it's without a doubt there. This was not the same as Kamo Khan. Kamo Khan's artwork was a lot easier to cut off. This was more like Frogmonger, and I really wish the Kamo Khan figures, the way that he unboxed, I really wish that he was the standard for how these things unboxed. I really, truly do. It would be better. But this is fantastic, and I get to keep this because I was able to do that. His blister is a massive improvement. This is the way to store the weapons. This is the best way. Because if you remember, multiple times I opened a couple of these and I found an issue where in the little baggie they would be bent because there's too much pressure of his back pushing against the blister, and then of course it bends the items, it bends the swords, and you have to work with them for a while to get them back into a decent condition. I don't like those little bags. This is the way moving forward that I hope they do this. That being said, his weapons are purple versions. That's it. Purple versions, purple and gold right here, pretty sharp, but still just purple versions of the same things that we've already got. No real differences at all there. If you're looking at Anti-Eternia He-Man, he fell over. If you're looking at Anti-Eternia He-Man, you're looking at a red and black as opposed to a purple and black, as opposed to a, we're going to call that metal gray and red. This is fine, but this is just a repaint. There's no way around it. It's a sharp repaint. It's a good color. This blue is sharp. This gold is sharp. This purple is sharp. It works. If I had a small complaint about the fact that it is a repaint, this would be it right here. This. Fix the hair. I realize his hair is black, but in the comic, and even on the back art, and even on the front art that you see on the card, you see that he has these white spots in his hair. Little white spots. That's not much, but it's enough that I wish it was there for him. A couple little white lines in his hair, like shine lines, would have been fantastic. And I guess I get the idea the light is shining on him right now, and you can kind of tell that he's got a little bit, you know, how white reflects off the black really well, especially on plastic, that kind of idea. It's already there. But I would still argue that I would have really liked it if they would have went out of their way to actually have that on there. So, in terms of this, in this He-Man in general, he does still have the same, because this is the same, it's the same harness even. So, we're looking at a He-Man, or He-Skeletor rather, where we put the axe in there, and we clip on the shield, so we put that around his hand here, clip that to his wrist. Dang, it really doesn't want to go for some reason. I don't know. I haven't had that problem with the other He-Man. Hold on. We're going to do that. There's this. There it is. I don't know why that was tough. Put the sword in his hand, and he's ready. He's ready to fight against Anti-Eternia He-Man, because that is the bad guy for He-Skeletor. He-Skeletor fights Anti-Eternia He-Man. In the comic, like I said, it's a little bit of a cop-out that he just becomes a He-Man. And it would have made more sense if he would have become a good guy Skeletor, like a wizard that was draped in white or something like that, that had a bunch of good guy powers and whatnot that just went a different direction. That just would have made more sense to me. I kind of didn't like the end of the comic when they did that, but I understood where they were going and I still enjoyed it for what it was worth. And I read it twice, so don't misunderstand and think that I hated it or anything like that. But where my mind was as opposed to where they went was definitely not the same march. They could have, at the very least, small details, this harness should have been redone. The battle harness should have been redone, and this should have been bones. Because there's a bone cross on the actual He-Keldor, or He-Skeletor. There's a bone cross, and that would have made a lot more sense to me. However, there's one more problem to point out with this figure. For as cool as it is, even though it is just a repaint, we got to stress that. We got to be real about what we got here. It's a repaint. It's just another He-Man. It's not Faker Blue. It's just another blue He-Man. So there's now a Faker Blue He-Man. There's an Anti-Eternia He-Man. There's a He-Man He-Man. There's He-Skeletor. We're getting a little deep on the repainting He-Man thing. But there was one thing I wish they would have done that they didn't do. I wish they would have matched his blue to Keldor. And they didn't. What am I talking about? That's what I'm talking about. This right here. The Keldor that came out a while back with the Rise of Evil pack. It's a different blue. So let me bring him closer to the camera just to get this here so we can really see the color variance. It's noticeably a different blue. So if we were to try to put it, if we were to try to head swap it, in fact, let's go ahead and do it real quick. Let's pop off his He-Man head. Let's put on the Keldor head. Oh, dang. The Keldor head does not want to go on there. There, I got the Keldor head on for the most part. I didn't push it down or nothing like that yet. Because, see that? See how it's noticeable? It's not the same blue. It's, from a distance, you could probably get away with that. But it is not the same blue. It is a little jarring, even though this would really be the way to go. If you're hard-pressed on color in general, and you want it to look right, if you want it to look all the right color, this is a different blue. That's a little disheartening, because this would have made sense, and now it would kind of have to be repainted to match. That's a little bothersome. I still debate that at a distance on the shelf, I don't know that you would notice. I don't know that it would be so jarring under the correct light on the shelf in the back that if you were to put this head on there, maybe you would get away with it and you would have a He-Keldor type of dude and he would, but, doable, I guess, but it is not the same blue, so those that see colors really well would notice it. And that's kind of bad news for what I was hoping, because when we very first talked about this guy, I said, I'm just going to swap on the Keldor head. I'm probably not going to do that. So yeah, there's a lot that we could call out about what this is. It is very much just a repaint. It is very much just blue He-Man. I know, I keep making the same joke, but that's what he is. That's what he is. And yes, we could call it out. We could be irritated. And those that are, I get it. I get the idea of saying, more repaints, and I get the idea of saying that you're tired of them producing the same character when so many other characters that you want still haven't made it to the line. I get it. And I also got a comment not but a little while ago that very blatantly said that they are tired of Origins. They're tired of the Origins line, and they're tired of deep dive characters. They want the main characters, the characters that matter in the line, and they'd rather see Origins shut down and they'd see Masterverse go the distance. And I get it that Masterverse is very much polling to be the new classics, okay? And I personally love the Masterverse. I'm right there with you on saying that the Masterverse should be the key line, but I don't discredit the Origins line. I like the Origins line. For what it is, I truly enjoy it, and I have enjoyed it. And remember, if you went back, if you were here for the other episode, or if you care to go back and listen to that episode when I talked about this He-Man, I specifically said that there was one main reason I was going to buy him. He is a deep dive. That's why I'm interested. I don't think this is done well. Let me get that right out there, right out here in the open. He's a fine repaint. He looks fine. But he's also just He-Man. If nothing else, and I know this is going to be mild, but if nothing else, if you were going to make him like a mirror image guy or something, swap his hands, maybe? Like have that be the sword holding hand and that be the shield hand, that would have at least been something. I wish they would have redone the battle harness. I mentioned that. I just feel like the battle harness definitely isn't right, because it isn't. But when they do these deep dives, they are testing the water for something as to whether or not they can actually get away with deep dives, other material that we haven't seen. And that's the reason I put in on this one. It's the reason that I got it. It's the reason that I decided to support it, because if this goes the distance, and it did sell out, they may put out deeper dives into more things like the comic continuity. And we may see characters like the DC He-Man variant with his armor and everything, because he's pretty cool. And we may see that show up. And once they know that you'll go for a deep dive character, that the deep dive characters have a chance of selling, we might very well see more of those characters done at a better sculpt rate. Like, I would like to see the 2013, or no, it's 2003, 2002, 2003 Teela. I'd like to see that. I'd like to have her with the long hair. She needs to have the long hair, and she needs to be that Teela. I get the idea that we had an Evelyn that was that, but she wasn't. She wasn't. I know that they said that, but she wasn't. She was just a repaint as well. They needed to do a little more work to her to make her what they claimed she was. And so, while these deep dives and alternate dives come out, this is a bit of a double-edged sword. I put my money in because I'd like to see them keep diving into material. And I'd like to see deep dives be done better with more purpose in the future. So if I support this, my hope is that they see that it sells, and the next time they decide to do a deep dive, they have more confidence that it is going to work. So they put that little bit of extra effort in and make the character better. They sculpt it out, they tool it, they put in the effort. That's what I'd love to see. Am I fooling myself? You could argue that I am. Because the only thing they really needed to do to sell this guy was the battle harness. Had they redone the battle harness, that tiny little detail would have made all the difference in the world. But they didn't do it. Yet, I put in the money because I said to myself exactly what I'm saying here. Hopefully, crossing my fingers, they see that the deep dives sell and we'll get more content from the deep, deep lore of Masters of the Universe. I don't know. You could call me a putz. I wouldn't argue with it, to be honest. I wouldn't argue with it, because I very much get what I paid into. But I have him. He's cool. He'll go on the shelf, and I won't complain about him, in all honesty. He'll be a cool little talking piece for people that notice him and go, "What's with the blue He-Man?" And I'll say, "That's He-Skeletor," or He-Keldor, whichever one you'd like to call it. This came from a comic book, and it gives me an excuse to talk Masters of the Universe when people realize that he's sitting there and they wonder what that's about. Good thing, bad thing, who's to say? I put my money in. I'm happy with him for the most part, but I knew what he was when I got into it. I knew he was just going to be Blue He-Man, and I knew where he was from. Some people online, excuse me, I'm having troubles here. Some people online I've seen say over and over and over again, "Why is he blue? What's this? What's he from? Did they just paint him blue and decide that they were gonna..." I've heard some people say cash grab, Blue He-Man, and they have no idea what he's even from because he's from a deep cut in the lore of Masters of the Universe, and not everybody read those comics, and not everybody knows what this even is. So it very much appeals to a certain area of fans. I would be a certain area of that fan base. I like some of these deep dive characters. Not all of them. I do pick and choose the ones that I actually care about. But in terms of something that I blatantly read and blatantly liked, yeah, he fits. And if we're gonna dive that deep into the mythology, hopefully we can come back and get some other Princess of Power characters and things like that in terms of the Origins line, because let's be honest here, we don't have a lot of them in the Origins line. That's really all I have to say here. I got Blue He-Man. I am happy with the product, but I'm not blind to what it is. I'm gonna get out of here. We've got more to open.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.